Fourth driving question: which are the most important presidents throughout all United States history?
Donald Trump, he is only the 45th and concurrent President of the United States. Some accomplishments he has made are
Note that these employee statistics are the lowest one throughout all the United States history. Donald Trump has made an awesome record for the United States. It's undeniable that he has made one of the most important things for the United States future.
Economic growth of the last quarter of the second best in the United States history, only surpassed by third quarter of 2014. With the ex-president Barack Obama, we're talking about him later on.
Hispanic and Asian people. These employees have the low rate ever. Recon glory, even though President Trump has made clear plenty of time his total rate of the immigration people, he still have heavily in some way the non-have negative people.
He has protected the United States terrorism with the travel ban. This one is an organization that wants to keep terrorism as far as possible. Making an alliance with these organizations gives us the idea that he is a responsible president that wants to care about his people, even though he has showed plenty of times his hate for African, Asian, and Latin people. He just don't like the foreign people.
Women's employment recently reached the 65 years. Donald Trump has achieved something that not even Barack Obama managed to do. He and Connecticut Bill really is great president, maybe the best through the United States history. Many people admire him not because of his belief, but because of his complete and great government management.
Signed the biggest package of tax cuts and reforms in the history. After tax cut over $300 billion poured back into the United States in the first quarter alone. That really helped people who were getting in bad economic situation and showed that the United States really could be poor, even with the minimum of taxes.
Obama. He was the first black president throughout all the United States history, and he was the 44th president elite in the United States history. Some of his accomplishments are the following.
Hit the country from the Great Recession, cutting the employment rate from 10% to 4.7% over 6 years. Even if we say that President Donald Trump is doing better with just one election, we can take the accomplishment that the president made.
Barack Obama, literally in ending of the war in Iraq. He interfered in the middle of the one and end it with a lot broad highway sticks and the rigs another war but the United States were in fair.
Signed the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, allowing as many as 5 million people living in the United States illegally to avoid deportation and receive work permits. Lots of immigrants, teenagers, and adults are now free and with an almost solved life.
Began the process of normalizing relations with Cuba. Cuba still doesn't really want the country's help, but the commercial relationship that was suggested by Obama is still open.
Or the LGBTQ plus community fight for marriage equality. Some of you might like this, some of you might not, but it is a fact that thanks to Obama, the United States has stated that the country approves the LGBT people relationships. Some natives don't like this idea. That's why some states approve the gay marriage and others don't. Presidents shouldn't force people to think as they do.
President is ever talking about president when you don't know who hears Washington in the really don't know everything about the United States. He was the first president of the United States Capitol. His name is Washington D.C. Here are some of his accomplishments.
He led the United States to victory in the decisive land battle of the American Revolutionary War. Washington actively led his men against the main British forces in 1775 to 1777, and then again in 1781. Though he lost battles, he never surrendered his army during the war. In 1781, American and French forces led by George Washington and Count de Rochambeau respectively decisively defeated British army commanded by Lord Cornwallis.
Washington established many forms of government that survive till today. After becoming president, Washington's first focus was on setting up the federal judiciary. Through the Judiciary Act of 1789, he established a six-member Supreme Court with one Chief Justice and five Associative Justices. Washington established many forms that become part of American tradition, like the cabinet system and inaugural address. He ensured a democratic system with tolerance to opposition voices, despite the fears that it would lead to political violence.
He suppressed the Whiskey Rebellion in 1791 to generate revenue to reduce the national debt, tax that was applied by the government to all distilled spirits. Whiskey being the most popular distilled beverage at the time, it became well known as the whiskey tax. In parts of the U.S., there was protest against the whiskey tax, and violence was used to prevent escalation. Washington used negotiation and later forced it to end whiskey rebellion, demonstrated that a newly formed government was capable of suppressing resistance to the laws enforced by it. Washington established the United States Navy. Previously, American ships were protected by the British and French navies, but after the proclamation of neutrality, they became vulnerable to pirate attack. By late 1793, a dozen American ships had captured, goods stripped, and everyone enslaved. Due to Washington signed the Naval Act of 1794, which established a permanent naval force. This force will eventually become the present-day United States Navy.
He was commander-in-chief of the Confederate Army during the American Revolution. When the American Revolutionary War broke out in 1775, Congress created the Continental Army and George Washington was appointed as its commander-in-chief.
Took enormous leads with the war. He explodes enduring strength of the war along with the Congress. Here are trained the army and manifests her mother. Most important, his situation has will his politic and personal skill was instrument to make the Congress, the army, the French and the same work toward a common goal.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy, majorly known as John Kennedy. He was the 35th President of United States history. Here are some of his major accomplishments.
In 1960s United States President election, John Kennedy defeats incumbent Vice President Richard to become in 35 President of the United States. At the age of 43, he was running youngest ever election. United States President Homer Theodore Roosevelt and the youngest person to ever become United States President.
He succeeded to the presidency at the age of 42, following the assassination of President McKinley. To date, Kennedy is the only president to have won a Pulitzer Prize, which he won in 1957 for his volume of short biographies, Profiles in Courage. He also remains the only Roman Catholic president.
He took the United States economy out of recession through his reforms. The United States was in recession when Kennedy took the office. He carried out various measures to boost the economy under his sound executive anti-recessionary acceleration program. Among other things, the most significant tax reforms since the New Deal were carried out, including a new investment tax credit. GDP, which had grown by an average of only 2.2 per annum during his predecessor Eisenhower's presidency, expanded by an average of 5.5% from early 1961 to late 1963, when Kennedy was assassinated. Also, inflation remained steady at around 1%, industrial production rose by 50%, and unemployment decreased. This rate of growth continued till 1969 and hasn't been repeated for such a sustained period yet.
John F. Kennedy established the Peace Corps on March 1, 1961 by Executive Order 10,924. It was a program through which American volunteers would help underdeveloped nations in areas such as education, farming, healthcare, and construction. The organization grew to 5,000 members by March 1963 and 10,000 the following year. Since its formation to 2016, around 220,000 Americans have joined the Peace Corps and served in 140 countries. Its initiatives include eradicating malaria in Africa and responding to crises like the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Theodore Roosevelt. He was the 26th President of the United States history. He was a big influence to the world. Here are some accomplishments of himself.
In 1898, war broke out between the United States and Spain over the former's intervention in the Cuban War of Independence. Along with Army Colonel Leonard Wood, Russell formed the first United States Volunteer Cavalry. Known as the Road Riders, the greatest victory came at the Battle of San Juan Hill, which was the decisive battle of the war. It involved the famous sheriff Cattle Hill on July 1 of 1898. Under the leadership of Roosevelt, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor in 2001 for his action in Cuba.
There was a coal strike in 1902 by the United Mine Workers of America that threatened the hidden supplies of the homes of 10 millions of Americans. President Roosevelt became involved and set up a fact-finding commission. He threatened to use the United States Army to mine the coal and seize the mines, and convinced both miners and owners to accept the findings of the commission. The strike was suspended and never resumed. The miner received 10% wage increase and working hours were reduced from 10 to 9, while the owners didn't have to recognize the trade union as a bargain agent anymore.
In 1902, President Roosevelt directed his Attorney General Prince Knox to bring a laxus in anti grow anti-beef tranche, and the monopoly has or more beef sales during the train. It was demoing a big six. Learning math pickups were ending in a conspiration to seek price and divide the meat market and more that themselves in her quest to high profits.
The Supreme Court ruled that the government was allowed to regulate monopolies if it had a direct effect on commerce, marking a success for Roosevelt in destroying the beef trust.
Fifth drawing question. Why is the United States economical situation so good?
The President of the United States, Donald Trump, believed that he owes a little credit because of the strongest economy on the planet. And he is right. When he just arrived from a trip from the Middle West, the president was making the best for his government, while people burned the envied before the elections in terms of the United States. He is saying for everyone the message that the economy is strong, with the favor of the Democrats even though it's not the elections yet. Usually, people blame presidents when the economy goes bad because in most occasions they're caused by external shocks or click factors, but also gives an opportunity of making themselves better when the things go excellently. Trump says that hyperbolic evaluation of the president and his own development is the opposite of what the facts say. When the PIB growing of the second trimester was revealed, it caused a big celebration and because of irrefutable numbers.
This could be a better opportunity to argument the taxes cut, the only significant legislation that Trump has done, which is giving wealth to everyone. The actual economic growth in the United States in the second trimester of the year was an average of the annual 4.1%, the best number since the third trimester in 2014. The disemployed is close to the minimum in 18 years. Farmers have more charts and their sports are growing. One strong amount of growing should give to the White House an insignificant impulse days after a series of gloomy headlines, and its incapacity for exit of the humiliating of the President Donald Trump with his homologue of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Also should give a personal breath to Trump, inasmuch as it should feel that the legal walls are closing right beside him. After the notice that one of his most closer confidants, Alvin Rosenberg, he has been indicted by the federal these fiscals that investigate about his lawyer Michael Cohen.
New York Times report that a special fiscal of the Russian Trump, Robert Mueller, is the exempt of Trump. Tweets in call shoes can help him prone to bull. Accounts that presidents acted with bad intentions when we disemployed the director of the FBI, James Comey.
As always, Trump will try to change the topic. With the actual state of the economy, it could have something of ammunition. The number of these employees in the darkest point in decades. The corporation gains are strong, and it looks like there will be no probability of a crisis. Reventec questionnaire shows that the economy is one of the few themes in which Trump is getting numbers closer to win again in the real elections. First driving question conclusion. The United States has a federal government that is in charge of the whole country issues, but also have city, state, and county local government. They are mostly responsible of public services such as garbage collection, urban transportation, service, etc. Not all governments have the same benefits and work similar. A few of them have more privilege than others. It is believed that this is good because of the United States is a big country and is more organized the way it is. Besides, it can be concluded that some states have death penalty due to their population, politicians, and states government.
Second, the driving question. Conclusion. The United States was never a world power from the beginning. A lot of process, debate, and pressing helps to make it conquer the world power. The United States had been an influence of onward and decisions.
Third driving question conclusion. Being a United States politician has many benefits such as health and economics. Some are privileges such as living in the White House, receiving a pension for life, and that the state gives you a house to live the rest of your life. Other benefits is that you can travel the world and have someone to help you, for example, a bodyguard.
Driving question conclusions. There are many presidents who helped the United States in its growth, but only some are important. Donald Trump is the current president and is one of the presidents who has left a mark on the economy of the United States. There are also others such as Barack Obama who helped people doing health campaigns, and one of the most important presidents is George Washington. He put the United States at victories during battles and made the Navy.
Fifth driving question conclusion. There are many reasons why the United States has a very strong and good economical situation. This is mainly because of the presidential management. They really know how to apply taxes and make the country work. The unemployment lately have been very low, and the inclusion for other cultures is as well very, very good.
General conclusion. The United States is a huge superpower in the world. Its influence is as big as itself, and the presidents who control the country really have made incredible efforts to the United States. Even though the United States has had plenty of presidents and all of them have done something for the country, there are still some presidents that make more than the majority. The United States comes with a great economic situation, mainly because of bureaucracy and presidential power. With the good management they have made, the United States economic situation went as high as the clouds.
The governmental organization is a great example of it. One president was smart enough to think of a great way to manage with almost total control the big country it is. Definitely, the United States is as powerful and good today because of the great management the presidents and politicians around them have made. Commendations 1.
Investigate on your own, even though this document's major purpose is to give us as much information as it can. This investigation won't fill everything, so this group recommendation is to investigate your doubts on your own.
2. Be sure to check tweets and information you receive about United States. Many people invent things about certain politics.
3. Before criticizing the president, know his accomplishments. The president himself might not be good, but he certainly has made something for the country.